Welcome to a special edition of Channel WEDU News. I'm Clyde Colbert. Today's special report, Community and Technical Colleges in Crisis. Nationally, two-year colleges have become virtually invisible at the state and national level, and too few policymakers or citizens have a thorough understanding of the programs and policies they provide. Making things more complex is the fact that two-year colleges face a number of challenges, including increasingly diverse populations, increasing competition, declining funding, and declining public trust. This situation is particularly complex in Kentucky, where the higher education dialogue in the state has been focused on doubling the numbers of baccalaureate degrees. While this focus acknowledges that KCTCS has a role to play in this objective, it effectively ignores the importance of occupational and workforce training to the state's economy. Therefore, KCTCS's unique role in higher education and economic development has been virtually disregarded. It was evident that a new public advocacy strategy was needed to ensure KCTCS not only has a seat at the higher education policy table in Frankfurt, but the seat that it deserves at the head of the table. Interestingly, the dilemma facing KCTCS is not limited to Kentucky. In fact, it's a national dilemma for higher education, particularly two-year colleges. As a result of economic downturns and decline in state revenues, many state legislators consider funding public higher education institutions only after they have funded other major programs in the state budget. Joining us from New Rochelle, New York, is Douglas Gould, a leading expert in two-year college advocacy and communications. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you so much for having me, Clyde. Nationally, community colleges have been facing an enormous challenge, something like a catch-22 situation where enrollment pressure is going up because of the bad economy, and at the same time, state funding is being cut, putting more and more pressure on the colleges to serve more and more people at a time with less and less resources. A recent study by the National Commission on Community Colleges said that community colleges are one of the nation's least understood and appreciated assets. This is something that really has to change.
So, Doug, is it true that many community and technical college leaders are developing public relations and advocacy campaigns to restore public trust and encourage support from state legislators and policymakers?
Yes, in fact, we've been working with a number of state community college systems through the Ford Foundation's Bridges to Opportunity initiative, and they've been developing some really amazing programs to educate the public and mobilize support for community colleges.
I hear you had some great success stories, particularly with the two-year colleges in Louisiana and Washington.
Yes, the community college systems in Louisiana and Washington both developed amazing public advocacy campaigns that have had a huge impact. In both states, they were able to triple the resources coming from the state government into those systems.
Wow, that is amazing. What's the secret?
Well, there are a number of ways to develop a good advocacy program, but the key is having a good message. And what we found in some of our research is that community college people often use messages that backfire or boomerang. A classic example would be touting open enrollment. Open enrollment is obviously a good thing, but when many people hear open enrollment, they hear no standards. If everybody can get in, well, then it can't be all that good. A second is bragging about the impact that community colleges have on the economy. This is not really understood by most people. They see the impact as being on the individual economy, but not on the economy as a whole. So we want to try to change that. Third, and this is perhaps the biggest problem, is comparisons with four-year schools. Many community college people compare their institutions to four-year institutions, and when this happens, our research shows that the community colleges lose. So we urge people not to do this.
Very interesting. But what messages do work for community colleges?
Yes, Clyde. Most importantly, community colleges need to stress that they are unique institutions. Secondly, they should talk about opportunity and access. These are two big American values that people associate with community colleges. Third, they should talk about how they're serving their communities. And fourth, they should stress their programs that provide workforce preparation and certification for people who are coming back and who need help in the workforce.
Earlier, you mentioned that there were other components that were essential to creating an effective advocacy campaign.
Yes, we recommend a three-pronged approach. First and foremost, you need a statewide earned and paid media campaign as an umbrella to everything else that's going on. Secondly, a strong grassroots advocacy effort is needed that recruits people, enrolls them, and mobilizes them to communicate with elected officials. And thirdly, you need a very strong public relations and public outreach effort during the legislative session so people know what the legislature is doing and how it will impact community colleges.
I understand that KCTCS has hired you to assist them in developing a similar campaign.
Yes, in the last 10 months, we've been working very closely with Dr. McCall, his leadership team, the Board of Regents, and the presidents across the state to develop a really strong public advocacy campaign that borrows very heavily on the experience that we had in working with the Washington State and Louisiana systems. We started with an assessment process where we conducted a number of important and useful interviews with key stakeholders across the state. And we learned some really valuable things that have guided everything we've recommended.
Moving forward, what are the key opportunities for KCTCS?
We see a number of opportunities that the community colleges should be taking advantage of. First and foremost, they need to lead the charge to fix the problems with transfer. They need to develop policies, they need to educate the public about what needs to be done, and they need to drive through a set of reforms with the community colleges leading that charge. Secondly, you have tremendous goodwill in the business community. This should be tapped and used to build support for the community college system in the legislature. As bad as the economy is, it's an opportunity for the community colleges to tell their story. And they should be out there talking about how community colleges can help fix the economy through better workforce preparation and so forth. The other opportunity is to unite around a common message. And community colleges really need to build support within the community college system and then get out there and tell a common story to the people in the state of Kentucky. And lastly, we see a great opportunity to capitalize on President Obama's American Graduation Initiative, which we think is going to have national stature and will have tremendous national visibility, and you can play into that to build greater support and esteem for KCTCS.
Thank you so much, Doug. Any parting words for your colleagues at KCTCS?
Yes, thank you, Clyde. And thanks to Dr. McCall and his great team at KCTCS. It's been a real privilege to be able to work with you. It's a great honor to be able to do something on behalf of people in the state of Kentucky who really need greater educational support that only the community colleges can offer.
Thank you, Doug.